pouch in your diaper bag, the one with the earthy packaging and the word organic in big letters, contains more sugar per ounce than Coca-Cola, sheds billions of microscopic plastic particles into the food before your baby ever tastes it, and has tested positive for levels of lead nearly 177 times higher than what's allowed in bottled water. The brand knew, the FDA knew, and the pouch is still on the shelf. Here's the thing. Nobody buys baby food pouches because they're lazy. They buy them because every signal in the market says this is the right choice. The packaging is minimal and clean. The ingredient list is short. It says USDA organic. It says no added sugar. It says non-GMO. There's a picture of a freshly picked pear on the front, and the back tells you it's perfect for your baby's development. And it makes sense. Your pediatrician says, introduce fruits and vegetables early. You're exhausted. You're managing feedings around naps and work, and the fact that you haven't slept through the night in 4 months. A pouch that delivers a full serving of organic spinach, apple, and kale in 60 seconds with zero cleanup feels like a small victory. It feels responsible. That feeling is engineered. The average baby food product carries 20 distinct marketing claims on a single package. Some carry over 40. 28% of those claims are about how natural the ingredients are. 21% celebrate the absence of something bad. Together, they build what researchers call a health halo, an aura of purity so convincing that parents stop asking questions about what's actually inside. And what's actually inside is a crisis hiding behind a label. Start with the sugar, because this is where the deception is most elegant. A 2025 analysis by the British Dental Association examined 109 baby food pouches marketed for infants under 12 months. Over a quarter of them contained more sugar per volume than Coca-Cola. Some pouches designed for babies as young as 4 months delivered 184% of the sugar concentration found in an equivalent serving of soda. That's up to 19.5 grams per serving, nearly 5 sugar cubes, in a product aimed at an infant. The label says no added sugar, and technically that's true. No factory worker spooned white crystals into the mix. But when a puree pouch advertises no added sugar, it is leveraging a regulatory loophole. Manufacturers achieve hyperpalatable sweetness by relying heavily on fruit juice concentrates and sweet root vegetables. Because the industrial blending process completely obliterates the fibrous matrix of the whole fruit, these naturally occurring sugars are absorbed by the infant's body as free sugars. Metabolically, this triggers the exact same insulin response as industrial refined sugar, bypassing the natural buffers that whole, unpureed fruit provides. Here's what that means inside your baby's body. When an infant eats a soft piece of whole banana, the sugars are locked inside the fruit's cell walls. The stomach has to work to break those walls down, and that work slows everything down. The sugar trickles into the bloodstream gently, and the pancreas handles it easily. But when that same fruit has been industrially pulverized into a shelf-stable liquid, there are no cell walls left. The sugar floods the bloodstream almost instantly. The pancreas has to release a massive surge of insulin to compensate, and in a 6-month-old body, that response is severe. Researchers at the George Institute for Global Health confirmed the scope. Evaluating over 650 infant foods on American shelves, they found that 73% of pureed pouches met the strict NOVA classification for ultra-processed foods. Fewer than 7% met international recommendations for sugar limits. The sugar problem alone would be enough to reconsider the pouch. But the sugar isn't the only thing hiding in there. So far, the problem is what goes into the pouch. But the pouch itself is a problem too. A research team at the University of Nebraska proved that heat is the primary trigger. Microwaving a polyethylene baby food pouch releases up to 2 billion nanoplastics per square centimeter directly into the food. But even if you never heat the pouch, simply storing it at room temperature or in a refrigerator over its 6-month shelf life causes the polymer matrix to degrade, shedding millions of microplastics into the puree. 2 billion is not a typo. That's per square centimeter, per heating event. And when an infant swallows those particles, the smaller ones, the nanoplastics, are so microscopically tiny that they pass straight through the lining of the gut and enter the bloodstream. From there, They circulate freely to the kidneys, the liver, and the brain. The Nebraska researchers wanted to know exactly what those particles do once they reach developing tissue, so they extracted the specific plastics shed by baby food containers and exposed them to cultured human embryonic kidney cells. Within 48 hours, over 76% of those cells were dead. By 72 hours, 77%. These aren't theoretical projections. These are laboratory-confirmed kill rates on embryonic tissue from the exact polymers shedding into baby food right now. And because human biology lacks the enzymes needed to break down synthetic polymers, these particles don't pass through, they accumulate. Every pouch adds to the total burden in developing kidneys, in developing livers, in tissue that is actively building the architecture of a human body. The estimated daily intake for infants eating from these containers is 20.3 nanograms of plastic per kilogram of body weight. For a 12-pound baby, that dose is massively concentrated compared to an adult eating from the same material, and it's delivered every day for the duration of the feeding window. An adult body might absorb this exposure with relatively minimal impact. An infant body cannot. Infants have highly permeable intestinal linings, immature blood-brain barriers, and rapidly dividing cells that are exponentially more vulnerable to disruption. And they consume far more food relative to their body weight than adults do, which means the dose per kilogram is vastly concentrated. So the destroyed fiber spikes insulin. The degrading plastic kills embryonic cells. And there's a third problem, the one the industry has known about the longest. In 2021, the U.S. House Subcommittee on Economic and Consumer Policy subpoenaed internal testing records from the largest baby food manufacturers in the country. What those documents revealed was systematic negligence on an industrial scale. Beech nut had used raw ingredients containing up to 886.9 parts per billion of lead. For context, the FDA limit for bottled water is 5. Hain Celestial, which manufactures Earth's Best Organic, routinely sourced ingredients testing at 352 parts per billion for lead. Gerber's ingredients tested as high as 48 parts per billion for lead and 90 parts per billion for inorganic arsenic. Nurture, Incorporated, the parent company of Happy Baby, admitted internally that their safety thresholds were merely goal thresholds, not actually used to make decisions about whether a product could be sold. When batches failed internal standards, companies didn't pull the product. They changed the standard. Walmart quadrupled the allowable arsenic limit for its Parents' Choice brand in 2018, from 23 parts per billion to 100 parts per billion, with no scientific justification. Sprout Foods tested its ingredient suppliers once a year and never tested the finished product at all, and the organic label offered zero protection. Arsenic, lead, and cadmium aren't pesticides or additives. They're elements already in the soil and groundwater. Organic farms grow in the same dirt as conventional farms. Their crops absorb the same metals. Many premium organic brands are currently defendants in the massive federal multi-district litigation, specifically because their products tested dangerously high. Root vegetables make it worse. Sweet potatoes and carrots, the two most common base ingredients in baby food pouches because they're cheap and naturally sweet, absorb heavy metals from the soil at far higher rates than other crops. Their root systems pull lead and cadmium directly from the ground and bind it into the edible tissue. The industry relies on them specifically because they mask the flavor of bitter greens. Parents pay a premium for a product labeled organic sweet potato and kale, never knowing that the sweet potato is functioning as a lead sponge. Following the Congressional expose, the FDA launched its Closer to Zero initiative to set enforceable limits. It has missed nearly every deadline it set for itself. Action levels for cadmium and arsenic have been pushed to late 2026, with full compliance not expected until 2028. As of right now, there is still no binding federal requirement for manufacturers to test finished baby food products for heavy metals before putting them on store shelves. Over 400 families have filed claims in federal court, consolidated into MDL 3101, alleging that heavy metal exposure from these products caused their children to develop autism and ADHD. Lead and arsenic interfere directly with synapse formation and myelin development during the exact developmental window when infants are consuming these products. The litigation is ongoing, fiercely contested, and far from resolved. This is not a fringe problem. The baby food pouch market hit $4.8 billion in 2025, 900% growth since 2010. Up to 82% of infants and young children consume squeeze pouches regularly, and 71% of all infant and toddler food products in top U.S. grocery chains qualify as ultra-processed, containing twice the sugar of their non-ultra-processed equivalents. The default feeding method for an entire generation of American infants is a product that spikes insulin, leaches plastic into developing organs, and delivers heavy metals to forming brains. Every single pouch, all three, simultaneously. The single highest impact change is the simplest one. Stop heating food inside plastic. Never microwave a pouch, a plastic container, or a plastic-lined vessel. Transfer the food to glass or ceramic first. That one behavior eliminates the most extreme spike in nanoplastic exposure. The second change is preparation. A fork and a steamer basket replace the entire commercial pouch industry. Buy whole fruits and vegetables. Conventional is fine if organic isn't in the budget. Steam them until soft and mash with a fork. Not a high-speed blender, a fork. Keeping some of the fiber structure intact preserves the cellular matrix that prevents the sugar from flooding your baby's system. This costs between $30 and $80 a month, which is less than most families spend on commercial pouches. Rotate your ingredients deliberately. Limit sweet potatoes, carrots, and rice, all heavy metal accumulators, to 2 or 3 servings per week maximum. Build the base of your baby's diet around peas, green beans, butternut squash, oats, and quinoa instead. When you need the convenience of a commercial product, and every parent does sometimes, look for third-party testing, not marketing claims. One nonprofit, the Clean Label Project, runs unannounced testing on baby food brands. The ones that carry their first 1,000-day promise certification have been independently screened for heavy metals, pesticides, and plasticizers. It's the closest thing to federal oversight that actually exists right now. Brands currently holding that certification include Little Spoon, Cerebelli, Once Upon a Farm, and Serenity Kids. They're premium, $3 to $4 per pouch, and that's not realistic for every family every day. But when you do reach for a commercial option, these are the ones that have submitted to independent testing for over 500 contaminants. On the label, avoid any product listing, fruit juice concentrate or apple puree, as the first or second ingredient, regardless of what the front of the package promises. And skip rice-based cereals and puffs entirely. Rice is one of the most aggressive arsenic absorbers in commercial agriculture. The pouch wasn't designed to hurt your baby. It was designed to sell, and it sells because it promises exhausted parents that they're doing the right thing. If you've been using them, you weren't failing. You were trusting a system that didn't earn it. Now you know what's actually in the pouch, and you know what to do instead. What product category should we investigate next? Drop it in the comments.